I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Sarah, for about 5 years now. We got engaged about a year ago, and everything seemed pretty perfect, or so I thought. She's always been a bit of a bitch, honestly, cynical, sharp-tongued, quick to lie when it suited her. But she's also beautiful, charming, and very convincing when she wants to be. I guess I was blinded by all that, or maybe because I loved her enough to ignore the red flags. Our relationship had its usual ups and downs, but I never really suspected anything serious. Maybe some minor fights, some jealousy here and there, but nothing out of the ordinary. Then, about 2 weeks before the engagement party, she started acting weird. Not outright suspicious, but different enough that I noticed. She was more secretive with her phone, always hiding it when I was around. She'd brush off my questions with a sharp attitude, saying I was paranoid or jealous. That should have been my first clue, honestly, but I just shrugged it off. The engagement party was supposed to be a celebration. Friends, family, food. Drinks, everyone happy. But I remember sitting there watching her from across the room, noticing how she kept checking her phone and whispering into it. She was acting so innocent, laughing, pretending like nothing was going on. She even flirted with a few of my friends, playing the perfect bride-to-be, but I caught her stealing glances at her phone repeatedly. Something was off, but I didn't want to ruin the night with my suspicions. Then the next day, I decided to check her phone. I know, big mistake, but I had this gut feeling that she was hiding something. I got into her messages and just scrolled casually, pretending to look for something else. That's when I saw it. Hidden in a side folder, there were texts between her and her boss, Mark. They were sharing explicit messages, talking about sex, about sneaking away, about being unbelievably good with each other. I was stunned. The words, the tone, everything was unmistakably about an affair. What hit me even harder was the timing. These messages started a few weeks ago, right around when she started acting weird. She was flirting outrageously, saying things she'd never say in front of me. And the worst part, I found out they had made plans to meet the very night after our engagement toast. I saw their hotel reservation confirmation, and I swear my stomach dropped out. I felt this mix of anger, betrayal, and shock. It was like I'd been punched in the stomach a dozen times. How could she do this? After everything we'd been through, after the promises she made, I felt so stupid for not seeing it earlier. But more than anything, I felt this deep, burning hurt that she could lie so blatantly, act so innocent while she was sneaking around behind my back. I couldn't keep it in. I confronted her that same night. I showed her the messages, the hotel reservation, everything I'd found. Her face went pale for a second, then she immediately started with her usual bullshit. "You're crazy," she said. "You're imagining things. Mark's just a friend, you're overreacting." I asked her how she could lie like that, how she could cheat on me with her boss right before our wedding, right in front of everyone. She shrugged, said I was insecure, that I didn't trust her. But I knew the truth. I had proof, and that proof was burning a hole in my mind. My mind was spinning. How did I miss all the signs? Why did she lie so effortlessly? I felt this cold rage building up inside. How dare she do this to me, to us? All the plans, the dreams, everything felt shattered in that moment. I realized I'd been living in a fantasy, thinking we were building something real. She was just using me, playing her games, and I was too blind or stupid to see it. That's when I started to think about what to do next. I couldn't stay with her after this. Not after discovering she'd been sleeping with her boss, probably for weeks, maybe longer. The betrayal was too deep. I knew I had to get out, but I also wanted to make her pay. She thought she could lie her way out of this, that I'd just forget or forgive. But I wasn't going to be that guy. No way. I needed a plan, something that would hit her where it hurt, something to make her realize she couldn't get away with it. But I'll tell you, the emotional roller coaster was brutal. I went from disbelief to anger, then to sadness, and finally this cold, calculating resolve. I'd been with her for years, and I never thought I'd end up feeling so betrayed, so humiliated. It felt like I'd lost a part of myself, and honestly, I felt ashamed for not seeing it sooner, for being so naive. But I wasn't going to let her walk away like she hadn't done anything wrong. No, she was going to pay. She'd regret ever crossing me. That's where I am now, plotting what to do next. I know I can't trust her anymore, and I don't want to stay with someone who lied and cheated and thought she could get away with it. I still love her, or I did, but love doesn't mean blind trust. Now I just want her to feel the pain of her actions, to understand what she's lost. I don't know exactly how I'll do that yet, but I'm not done with her. Not by a long shot. After I confronted her that night, things got even messier. Sarah, true to form, started with her usual bullshit, denying everything, calling me paranoid, saying I was overreacting. Her voice was high-pitched, almost desperate, trying to twist the story around so I'd doubt what I'd seen. She kept saying she was innocent, that Mark was just a friend, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. But I wasn't born yesterday. I had those messages, the hotel reservation. I saw her sneaking into the hotel with my own eyes. No way was I going to let her spin her web of lies and fake innocence. I told her if she wanted to keep playing dumb, fine, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I was done. She looked furious when I said I wanted to end things. She started crying, saying I was ruining her reputation, that I should trust her, that she loved me. It was all just noise. I felt numb inside, like I'd been hit with a sledgehammer. How could she be so manipulative, so cold? I'd always thought she was the one, the girl I'd marry, but now I saw her for what she really was, a liar, a cheat, and a user. The next few days were hell. She kept texting me, begging for another chance, crying about how she made a mistake, how she was sorry she hurt me. It was all fake, I knew that now. She was just trying to save her ass, keep her bullshit story intact. Meanwhile, I started digging even deeper, trying to piece together everything. I hired a private investigator. I didn't want to leave any stone unturned. If she was cheating, I wanted proof that I could really use. While waiting on that, I replayed everything in my head. The late nights she'd claimed were work, the secretive calls, the way she'd suddenly disappear for hours, all of it. Turns out I wasn't imagining things. There were more signs I had missed: her frequent late texts, the way she'd blush when her phone buzzed, and the way she'd always have some excuse to leave the room when I got too close. She was cold, calculating, and clearly lying to my face every chance she got. One night I caught her again. This time she was in the living room, pretending to be asleep, and I found her phone on the coffee table. I snatched it and looked through her recent messages. More dirty talk, more plans to meet Mark. It was all laid out there. They'd planned their next rendezvous, even discussed how to cover their tracks better. That was the final nail. I knew I couldn't keep pretending she was innocent anymore. When I finally had enough proof, I decided I couldn't keep quiet. I called her out again, told her I knew everything and I wanted her to admit it. She looked at me with those cold, bitchy eyes of hers and shrugged. "You're overreacting," she spat. "It's just sex, Mike. People cheat all the time. It doesn't mean anything. You're insecure." That was the moment I realized she didn't even care. She thought she could just lie her way out of it like it was no big deal. That made it worse. I felt a mixture of disgust and rage. How dare she treat this like some trivial thing? To her it probably was, just some fun, some thrill. But to me it was betrayal on a level I'd never experienced before. My trust was shattered. I'd given her my heart, my future, and she threw it all away for some affair with her boss. I started questioning everything, our memories, our plans, what I ever saw in her. That night I knew there was no fixing this. Not anymore. I told her. I wanted out. I told her I'd be filing for divorce. She laughed, of course, trying to act like I was overreacting again, like she hadn't just been caught cheating with her boss. She called me crazy, said I was jealous, that she'd never do anything to hurt me. But I saw straight through her bullshit. She was the one who lied, the one who betrayed everything we had. I realized I needed to get out before I got even more hurt. I couldn't keep living with the image of her sneaking into that hotel, pretending she was innocent. So I started planning my next steps. I reached out to a lawyer, started gathering all the evidence I had. I knew I had to be smart about this. She was manipulative, and I didn't want to give her the chance to turn things around or deny everything again. I also started thinking about how to confront her family, her friends, maybe even her boss. I wasn't going to let her get away with this without some consequences. Honestly, though, the emotional toll was brutal. I felt like I'd been punched repeatedly. Every time I thought I was over the shock, another wave hit me: anger, sadness, disbelief. I kept questioning myself. Did I miss the signs? Was I blind? Had I loved her so much that I couldn't see her for what she was? I felt ashamed, humiliated, and utterly betrayed. The woman I'd trusted, the woman I was planning to spend my life with, had been lying and cheating behind my back all along. The hardest part was realizing how much I'd loved her, how much I had invested in this relationship, only for it to turn out to be a lie. That initial shock turned into a cold resolve. I was going to make sure she paid for what she did, even if it meant losing everything myself. Because at the end of the day, I was done being the fool. I deserved better, and I was going to take back what was left of my dignity. The days that followed were like walking through a fog. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, those cold, manipulative eyes lying so effortlessly. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I'd been so blind to everything. But deep down, I knew. It was more than just missing signs. It was denial. I loved her so much that I refused to see the truth for what it was. Now I was paying the price for that denial. I started to distance myself from her slowly. I knew I had to get some clarity, some space to breathe, to think. I moved my things out of the apartment and stayed with a friend for a few days. That's when I finally sat down and really looked at the evidence. It wasn't just some drunken hookup or a one-time thing. It was weeks of texts, planned meetings, and secret rendezvous. She'd been lying to me every day, pretending she was loyal, pretending she cared. That realization hit me like a punch in the gut every single time. During those silent days, I found myself oscillating between anger and sadness. I'd be furious at her for betraying me, for lying so effortlessly, for treating our relationship like a game. But then I'd also feel this overwhelming sadness, like I'd lost the woman I thought I knew, the woman I'd wanted to marry. I kept replaying that night, the moment I found out, and asking myself if I could have done anything differently. Did I miss the signs? Did I push her too hard? Was I not enough? Those questions haunted me, but I knew I had to accept the reality. She was gone, and so was the trust I once had. I also started thinking about the future. I knew I couldn't stay in the same place dwelling on what she did. I needed to act. I contacted a lawyer and we started the divorce process. I wanted her out of my life completely. No more lies, no more secrets. I told her I wanted a clean break, that I deserved better than this betrayal. She tried to play victim, calling me insecure and jealous, but I didn't buy her act anymore. I was done with her excuses. I had the proof, and I was prepared to fight for what I deserved. One thing I did was gather all the evidence I had, screenshots of the messages, the hotel confirmation, even recordings of our last conversations. I wanted to make sure there was no way she could spin her way out of it. She kept trying to deny everything, calling me crazy or threatening to ruin my reputation. But I knew the truth was on my side. I was tired of her bullshit. I wanted to expose her for who she really was, a manipulative, selfish woman who used me as a backup plan until she found something better. The day I finally sat her down to confront her directly about everything, her attitude was infuriating. She was so quick with her lies, so dismissive of my feelings. "You're overreacting," she kept saying. "It's just sex. It doesn't mean anything." That's when I snapped. I told her she was disgusting, that she'd ruined everything we ever had, and that I never wanted to see her again. She looked surprised at first, then furious. She yelled and yelled, trying to justify her actions or turn things around, like she was some victim. But I wasn't buying it anymore. That moment made me realize how much she'd been playing me. She thought she could cheat, lie, and manipulate her way out of it all. But I had enough now. I saw her for what she really was, a bitchy, selfish woman who only cared about herself. And I felt relief, honestly, because I was finally free from her grip. I knew it would hurt to leave her, but staying would have hurt more in the long run. I was tired of feeling like the fool, tired of carrying the weight of her lies. So I told her I wanted a clean break. No contact, no explanations, nothing. I was done. I had to focus on rebuilding myself, on healing from this nightmare. I knew I couldn't stay in that toxic environment, pretending everything was okay. I needed to get away, find some peace, and start over. I knew she'd try to come back, or maybe she'd spread lies about me, but I didn't care anymore. I just wanted to be free of her. Looking back now, I realize this experience has changed me forever. I've learned not to ignore the red flags, not to trust blindly, and definitely not to ignore my gut. I also learned that some people are just selfish, manipulative, and willing to destroy what you have for their own pleasure. It's a harsh lesson, but one I needed to learn. I want anyone out there who's going through something similar to know, trust yourself. If something feels off, it probably is. Don't ignore your instincts, even if it hurts. Because in the end, you're better off alone than with someone who doesn't value you. After I made the decision to cut her loose, I thought I'd finally breathe again. But honestly, it wasn't that simple. The pain, the betrayal, those feelings lingered, and I kept waking up with that sick feeling in my stomach, wondering how she could do this to me. I thought I knew her, thought we had something real. Instead, I found out she was just pretending for years, lying and cheating behind my back. It made my stomach churn just to think about the nights she spent with her boss, Mark, probably laughing at how stupid I was for trusting her. I stayed with my friend for a while, trying to piece myself back together. But every little thing reminded me of her. Her perfume on my clothes, the messages I'd found, the way her voice used to sound when she was lying to my face. I couldn't even look at her anymore without feeling a surge of anger. The worst part was the humiliation. I felt like a fool for not seeing it sooner. How could I have been so blind? How did I miss all the signs? I kept replaying everything, trying to find some way I could have caught her sooner, some way to save myself from this pain. Meanwhile, she kept trying to contact me, of course. Begging, crying, saying she was sorry, making herself out to be the victim. That was her usual playbook: turn things around, make me feel guilty for catching her. She'd send long texts claiming she loved me, that she was sorry she made a mistake, that she didn't mean for everything to happen. But I knew better. I knew she was just trying to manipulate me into giving her another chance. I wasn't falling for it. I'd heard it all before. I'd seen through her lies. I also started talking to a lawyer. I wanted to get the divorce process started, and I needed advice on how to handle her, especially with her trying to guilt-trip me or spin stories. I didn't want her to get away with playing the victim. I had evidence, screenshots, hotel reservations, her messages, enough to show she'd been cheating on me for weeks. I was ready to fight for everything I deserved. I didn't want her to get a dime more than what I owed her, and I definitely didn't want her dragging my name through the mud. One day, she showed up at my place unexpectedly. She had that bitchy attitude, acting like she still owned the place. She tried to apologize again, saying she was sorry I found out this way, claiming she loved me and only did it because I was controlling or jealous. I just looked at her with cold eyes. I told her I didn't want her to ever come back, that I was done pretending everything was okay. I told her I file for divorce and I wanted nothing more to do with her. Her reaction was classic. She threw a fit, calling me heartless, paranoid, and crazy. She said I was ruining her life, her reputation, all because I lost trust. She kept trying to guilt me into forgiving her, saying I was the one who was insecure and jealous. But I knew her game. I wasn't falling for it anymore. I realized she'd never change. She was the same selfish, manipulative woman I'd always known. Only now I saw her for what she truly was, a liar and a cheat. That day I made it clear I wasn't giving her another chance. I told her I wanted a clean break, no contact, no apologies, no excuses. She stormed off, yelling, calling me names, trying to make me feel guilty, but I felt nothing but relief. I finally felt like I was taking back control of my life. I knew I'd have to face the pain and the loneliness, but it was better than living with that betrayal every day. I had to start over. In the aftermath, I started focusing on myself. I threw myself into work, started therapy, and tried to rebuild some sense of normalcy. It wasn't easy. There were nights where I'd lie awake, replaying everything, wondering if I could have done something different. But I also knew I had done everything I could to uncover the truth. The rest was out of my hands. I had to accept that she was gone, and I had to move on, no matter how painful it was. I learned that trust, once broken, can't be fixed easily. And sometimes, the person you love the most is the one who can hurt you the deepest. I also realized that you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved, and that you have to protect yourself first. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I won't let her or anyone else manipulate or lie to me again. From now on, I'll trust my instincts and keep my boundaries firm. Because if I don't, someone like her will just keep taking and taking until there's nothing left of me. The weeks after she left were a blur of emotion. I threw myself into work, trying to drown out the constant nagging voice in my head that kept replaying her lies and tears. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, how someone I loved and trusted could betray me so completely. The betrayal cut deep, but what hurt even more was realizing she never truly cared about me. It was all just a game for her. She used me, played the victim, and then walked away like she hadn't just destroyed everything we built. I started to see things more clearly. The signs had been there all along, I just refused to see them. Her secretive behavior, the late nights, the way she'd shut down every time I asked about her. Phone, those were all red flags I ignored. I was so blinded by love that I didn't want to believe she'd cheat on me. But the truth was staring me right in the face, and I couldn't keep pretending anymore. The hurt was still fresh, but I knew I had to pick myself up and move forward. One thing I did was completely block her from my phone and social media. I didn't want to see her lying or pretending to be innocent. It was tough at first, especially because she kept trying to contact me, but I knew I couldn't let her manipulate me anymore. I also started to rebuild my social circle. I reached out to friends I had neglected because of her, and surprisingly, some of them had seen her acting strange well before I did. That gave me a little comfort. At least I wasn't completely oblivious. The biggest step was finally talking to a therapist. I needed someone outside of my friend circle who could help me make sense of everything. The pain, the anger, the betrayal, none of it was easy to process. The therapist helped me understand that I wasn't at fault, that I deserved better than someone who would lie and cheat. She told me I was strong for facing all this and that I should focus on healing, not on blaming myself. I started to see a light at the end of the tunnel, even if it was faint. Meanwhile, I kept reflecting on the relationship. I realized I'd spent so much time trying to fix her, to make things work, to believe in her when she clearly didn't care. I kept asking myself, why did I stay so long? Why did I ignore the warning signs? The answer was simple. I loved her and I wanted to believe she'd change. But love isn't enough when someone is willing to lie and cheat behind your back. I learned that lesson the hard way. Getting rid of her toxic influence wasn't easy. Every day I had to fight the urge to reach out to see if she'd come back and apologize. But I knew better. I'd given her enough chances and she'd blown them all. The best thing I could do was focus on myself and rebuild my life on my own terms. I started working out again, taking long walks and reconnecting with hobbies I'd neglected. Slowly, I was starting to feel like myself again. That's also when I realized how much I'd been craving closure. I needed to put this chapter behind me once and for all. So I wrote her a letter, nothing emotional or dramatic, just a clear message saying I was done, that I deserved better, and that I wouldn't be part of her lies anymore. I didn't send it right away, just kept it as a reminder that I was finally taking control. It felt good to put those feelings into words, even if she never read it. Most importantly, I learned to listen to my instincts. I used to ignore that little voice inside that warned me something was wrong. Now I trust myself more. If I feel uneasy or suspect something, I don't brush it off, I confront it. It's a painful process, but it's necessary. That's how I finally started to heal, by accepting the truth, no matter how ugly, and refusing to let her betrayal define me. Now I'm at a point where I can say I'm stronger than I was a few months ago. I'm not completely over it, not by a long shot, but I've accepted that I can't change her or the past. I can only learn from it and move forward. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I'm no longer willing to be a victim of someone else's lies. I deserve honesty, respect, and real love, something I won't settle for anymore. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this: never ignore your instincts. If you sense something's wrong, dig deeper. Don't let love blind you to the truth. Because when betrayal hits, it hits hard, and the only way to survive it is to face it head-on and refuse to stay in the darkness. That's what I'm doing now. I'm slowly rebuilding, one day at a time, and I know I'll come out stronger on the other side. The final step in this whole mess was really about reclaiming my life. I didn't want to carry the weight of her betrayal anymore, so I cut everything off completely. No more calls, no more messages, no more checking her social media. I told myself I deserved better than someone who could lie so easily, someone who used me like a game. It was hard, really hard, to let go of the years I invested, the dreams I had built around her. But deep down, I knew holding on to her was just holding on to pain. I started focusing on myself, going out more, reconnecting with old friends, even taking a trip alone just to clear my head. I needed to remind myself that I was more than just the guy who got cheated on. I was still me, strong, capable, and deserving of someone who actually cares. Slowly, I stopped waking up with that sick feeling in my stomach. Slowly, I felt like I could breathe again. It's crazy how much a betrayal can mess with your mind, but I learned to rebuild piece by piece, day by day. The hardest part was accepting that I might never know exactly why she did it. Was it just because she wanted some thrill, or was she genuinely looking for something better? Did she ever truly love me? I don't have those answers, and at this point, I don't think I ever will. But I've come to realize that some questions are better left unanswered. What matters is how I moved forward, how I learned to trust myself again. One thing I've realized is that time really does heal. The pain doesn't disappear overnight, but it gets easier to bear when you stop fighting it. I started working on my confidence, making sure I was in a good place emotionally and mentally. I didn't want to be that guy who let a woman's betrayal define him. I wanted to be stronger, wiser, more cautious. I learned to listen to my gut. If something feels off, I don't ignore it anymore. I face it head on. There's a certain freedom that comes with finally letting go of someone who doesn't value you. I used to think love was enough, but I see now that respect is just as important, if not more so. I don't need someone who cheats and lies. I deserve honesty, loyalty, and someone who truly cares about me. That's what I'll be looking for from now on, and I won't settle for anything less. Looking back, I realized that this whole ordeal, as painful as it was, taught me some invaluable lessons. Trust your instincts. Don't ignore red flags. Love yourself enough to walk away when someone consistently hurts you. And most importantly, don't wait around hoping someone will change. People only do what they want, and if they don't treat you right from the start, they probably never will. So here I am, finally at peace with everything. I've learned to forgive myself for staying too long, for ignoring the signs, and for trusting someone who didn't deserve it. I've learned that life goes on, and sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the best lessons. I can move forward now, free of her shadow, ready to find someone who actually values me and who I can trust. To anyone out there going through something similar, trust me, you're not alone. It hurts, it stings like hell, but you will heal. Take your time, lean on your friends, seek help if you need it, and don't be afraid to walk away from someone who doesn't respect or love you properly. Because in the end, the most important thing is your happiness and your dignity. Don't settle for less and never forget your worth.